Welcome back for another video. I'm Ehabad, a free-to-play endgame player in Raid Shadow Legends. It's fusion time again, and they seem to be happening all the time. But first let's look at the champion in question. Maranix, a force attack-based champion from the Dark Elf faction. In terms of the skills, we have a double hit A1, which has a chance to hit up to an additional 2 times if there is a hex debuff out there. So each of the 2 hits has a 50-50 chance to place an additional hit. Most likely, it will end up being a triple hitter if Hex is out, with a chance of it being either 2 or 4 hits as well. It's a decent ability. It can be good for Hydra and Fire Knight. And typically when we have a extra hit mechanic that is conditional, the damage multipliers are actually pretty strong. So if you do get the 3rd or 4th hit out, this could do some good damage. In terms of the A2, we have an ability that I personally believe belongs on a support-based champion to set up a nuker. To me, this seems misplaced on an attack-based champion. That said, this would be very strong within the force attack only secret room. That is one use case we would have for Maranix. If that is a secret room you are struggling with, it could be strong there. Nonetheless, I still personally view this as a PvE focused ability, and I do think it would be better if it was on a tankier champion. With the A3, we have a PvP nuker ability which requires setup. Currently, in my opinion, there are no viable supports to do so. I think in an ideal situation, we'd have a support-based champion with a buff strip and hex on an AoE basis, either one that is a place that cannot weak hit, or on a void champion. Either way, currently we do not have such a champion, so personally, it's difficult to set up this A3 in a reliable and meaningful way without having to bring more champions than we have space for in a typical arena team. Lastly, the passive is nice in theory, but I'm unconvinced how useful it will be in practice. Typically in PvP, you want the AoE nuke to be killing all, if not nearly all, of the champions on the enemy team. And whilst there are occasions, particularly with Stone Skin and Reaction, where having the ability to reuse the A3 straight away on the next turn would be handy, as it does effectively give Maranix a potential 3rd AoE, it's very conditional, and it does require Hex to already be out there, and as we said, there's no decent support-based champion to set that up currently. So that means, for me, the champion is a bit confused. We have a PvE-focused A2, a PvP-focused A3, with no current support to set up the A3. It's wrong affinity for Faction War 21 auto-farming, and it's bad affinity versus Duchess for PvP. There's a lot stacked against the champion, and currently there's no compelling use case. Could be one for the future, we'll have to see. Which means I think whilst the champion is interesting, currently very niche and a little underwhelming. So if you're not yet farming Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, and you have to be selective over which fusions you do, I'd say this is one for you to skip based on kit alone. Right, now let's look at the schedule. Recently, dungeon divers have been very nasty, and I'd expect that to continue, so careful planning must be paid to those events. And we have 3 of them this time, which is pretty brutal. Furthermore, champion training overlaps with dungeons in both instances, which means energy will be restricted throughout the fusion, and we'll have big crunches on Wednesday the 5th to Friday the 7th, where we're going to have to overlap dragon, champion training, and dungeon divers, all at the same time. And again, Tuesday the 11th to Thursday the 13th of October, where we're going to be overlapping the Fire Knight, champion training, and dungeon divers again. There's a bit of an overlap in 2 instances within this fusion. Both summoning events are de facto mandatory. We've got the Summon Rush and the Champion Chase tournament. We have the Summon Rush first, which means we'll have to summon without knowing if we're going to get lucky during the 2x Ancients and pull a copy of the rare or epic, which obviously is not the way round we would ideally like it as players. I'm hopeful that the Summon Rush itself will be either an interesting 10x or hopefully a guaranteed champion, but I suspect this is more wishful thinking than something that has a high probability. I would say the more likely scenario is that a guaranteed, if there is one in this 2-week window, would fall during Clan v Clan, as that would ultimately result in a triple whammy on the summoning and would make Plarium the most money. So that is therefore probably the most likely situation we would see. Nevertheless, since we have to pull likely around 3 to 5 sacreds to get the rare in the first Summon Rush, or 7 to 9 if we want to pick up a copy of the epic, either to keep the epic or as a way of avoiding having to do the champion chase during the 2x Ancients. If there is a guaranteed champion, the marginal cost would be relatively low, and it would be a compelling reason to do not just the fusion, but to get the guaranteed. With regards to the champion chase during the 2x Ancients, by that point we will be in a position to fuse 3 of the epics during that event for an additional 750 points. We would also be able to level them up to 5-star for champion training points as well, overlapping during that period. Likewise, during the first champion training, we will have 4 of the rares, which we can also rank up to 4-star 40 for maximum efficiency. So in summary, the fusion schedule overall is rather intensive. There are 2 big red flag overlaps, and beyond that it really boils down to what they overlap the Summon Rush with. If they do a guaranteed, then the fusion is a no-brainer for those that can do it and want the guaranteed champion. If they do a terrible 10x, then unless you have a good stockpile of resources and can comfortably do every fusion, it's probably better to skip. So in this instance, I'd advise doing the champion training event for the legendary tome, even if you are skipping the fusion altogether. And then if you're on the fence about doing the fusion, get the Dragon, Dungeon Divers 1 and the Artifact 1 events done, and wait and see what the Summon Rush looks like. Now there's an additional element I want to mention, which is the Dungeon Divers 1 does not start until tomorrow, on Wednesday the 5th. So if we jump back to the game, what I have done is save my energy refills that I have from various tournament rewards, such as the recent Classic Arena Takedown tournament. I have 2 side rewards there, and I also have a placement energy reward. The Champion Chase tournament, where I again have side rewards in terms of energy. In terms of the events, they've expired, so they've now gone to the inbox. Obviously, we got those compensations recently for all the problems. But you can see here, this was the Fusion warm-up energy. And then a few days before that, we had another tournament. I can't now remember which it was, but I got a placement in that. And that's another 150 energy that I have available to use over the next few days. So I've got quite a lot of energy refills ready for when the Dungeon Divers is live, and then I can kind of triple dip around champion training, dragon, and Dungeon Divers. I'll make sure that we're getting all of those areas of the game progressed at the same time. In terms of the champion training event, it's actually a very attractive one. We do have a legendary tome at 13.4 and a chaos ore at 14,750. Plus, to be honest, the 10 tier 1 essences are pretty appealing given how scarce they are. The drop rates on those are absolutely terrible at the moment, which is rather disappointing given how many souls and split souls I would like to be purchasing from the shop, but how few I actually practically can, given to the terrible drop rates that we currently have in Twin. So, I mean, hopefully they'll buff those at some point, but I'm not holding my breath, unfortunately. So for me, overall, this champion training is an attractive one. We've got 5 days to do it. It should be quite straightforward, particularly if you follow the guidance I've given in previous videos. I would recommend actually going back and looking at the Helicath Fusion video. I have individual daily videos during that Helicath Fusion where I explain each event and tournament as it popped up, and I have one specifically dedicated to maximizing champion training. So that's definitely well worth a watch if you haven't caught that one already. Right then, so for me, I'm going to go ahead and assume that I'm going to do the fusion. I will do the champion training event anyway. Even if I was skipping the fusion, I'd do that. I'll make sure I get Dragon done, Dungeon Divers 1, and the Artifact event. And then we'll just see what happens with the Summon Rush. I'd say it's almost, it's probably like 95% certain I'll end up just doing the fusion anyway, just to collect the champion for the collection. I don't typically skip any of the fusions. I am in a position where I can do them all, but I do find that it's not the best return on resources given the schedule that we have in front of us, unless they make that 10x reasonably compelling. So, hopefully we'll see something interesting there, be it a really good set of 10x champions or a guaranteed champion would be ideal. But like I said, I'm not going to hold my breath. I think the most likely situation is that they'd put a guaranteed during Clan v Clan. Right then, thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.